4 a.m.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I'm saying this on tape. I hate to admit it, but you were right.
I was right, yeah, I know I was right.
About Netanyahu.
That what?
Which top we on?
You are on
You down on base? Okay, we are, that's Halacha Gimel, right? Okay, Elu Kalim. Now it's a decided change of pace for this evening. First thing we're going to speak about is Messiah de Aveira. Okay, not to assist people who are going to commit Aveirus. Elu Kalim She'enu Uman Rashai L'Mochim B'Shvi'is. These are therefore the implements which craftsmen may not sell during Shemitah. Machresha, plow, v'chol, and all the accessories to a plow. Ha'ol, a yoke. V'amizareh, a tool for winnowing wheat. V'adeker, a hoe. There's all these things are obviously implements of Isser. But you can sell a hand sickle and a harvesting sickle because it can be used to harvest the permissible crop, things which is growing for the 6th year, and it's permissible to be cut down in the 7th year. You can sell wagons, because although wagons might be used for prohibited purposes, they can be used for permissible purposes as well. This general principle. Anything which is specifically intended for the purpose of an Avera also is forbidden to sell. Something which can be used both for permissible and prohibited purposes is mutter, you may sell during Shemitah. Let's go to the Gemara. Rabbi Yoner said, Kini Masnisa, this is the way to read our Mishnah. Elu Kalim She'enu Uman Rashayim Mocharim B'Shvi'is L'Chosha Shvi'is. These are the vessel implements which a craftsman cannot sell in Shemitah to a person who's suspect to transgress Shemitah. Staman Mao. What about the person we don't know whether he's suspect to transgress Shemitah or not? From that which it says that if it's a potentially an implement which is used both for prohibited and for permissible purposes, that you're allowed to sell it. This tells us also to a person who's a question mark, who may or may not keep Shemitah. So you're allowed to sell these implements to such a person. Okay? So Stam and Mutter, this teaches us that our Mishnah is specifically talking about a case where the guy who's coming to your store is a person you know is suspect to transgress Shemitah. You can't sell him farm implements. However, a person who you may not necessarily assume is going to transgress Shemitah, to such a person you may sell the farm implements during Shemitah.
In the Bozar, we had something similar, but selling to a guy's kalim of a village.
Right, the same idea. The same ideas apply. The same principles. So we're gonna cross over a little bit here too. Hayotzer, going back to the Mishnah, a potter. Mocher chamesh kadei. He could sell in one shot 5 oil vessels and 5 wine vessels. Now they look differently. Oil has a larger mouth. Wine has a narrower mouth because it pours easier. And oil and wine containers are also made from different types of clay. It's not clear exactly which type of clay each one, but they're recognizable. They're distinct. They're different uses have different types of pots. So you can sell 5 of each type. That's about the maximum you can assume a guy is going to go and find from Hefker grapes and Hefker olives. That amount, 5 pitchers worth of each type. What if he found more than that? In other words, he got particularly lucky and he went out to the Hefker fields and found much more grapes and olives to make much more wine and oil. So mutter, in that case, you'll have to sell even more pots. But you have to know for sure that you got in a permissible way. However, there's no quota. In terms of selling the goyim, you can sell the goyim both in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz as many pitchers as you want. And one's going to ask, what's the chiddush? Let's go to the Gemara. The Chosh Lomar Shemi Yichliv says more. Wait a minute. How can you sell them 5 and 5, 5 oil and 5 wine? Maybe use all 10 for wine or all 10 for oil, right? In other words, you're assuming that he's going to use it for each one for its intended purpose. How do you know? Rabbi Yisrael, as I mentioned right in the Mishnah, they're recognizable. Elu shel yain, elu shel shemen. These are wine and these are oil, and people generally do not switch them. Ula said, not only is the shape different in terms of the mouth of the vessel, but adra the ilain chakima, the material Ador is the clay. The material of these is recognizable. V'ador the ilain chakim, and the material of these are recognizable as well. So therefore one can tell the difference, and that is why one is allowed to sell 5 and 5. We're not going to use all 10 for either all wine or all oil. Okay? It might happen, but the seller doesn't have to go that far as to be that paranoid as to assume that that's going to happen. Okay? You can sell to goyim in Eretz Yisrael. Even more, right? Even more than 10. And I think I read this wrong in the Mishnah. You can sell to Yisrael ba'aretz and Yisrael b'chutz la'aretz. And you can sell to a Jew in Yisrael in chutz la'aretz v'afilu min hakoni ba'aretz. Now what this means is if you're a wholesaler and you're selling to a middleman, so you can sell to the middleman who's going to chutz la'aretz as many pitchers as he wants. And you don't have to assume that if he doesn't find enough people to buy in chutz la'aretz, that he's going to come back and sell the rest of his stock in Eretz Yisrael. You just assume that he's going to sell it all in chutz la'aretz, and therefore I don't have to suspect that anything is going to go awry here. Okay? Let's go back to the Mishnah. Beis Shammai says, Lo yimkar lo paro choreshes b'shvi'is. One is not allowed to sell a plowing cow to a Jew during Shemitah. Beis Hillel says it's mutter to sell a plowing cow because he can shecht it. He doesn't necessarily have to plow with it. This is actually Mishnah Avodah Zarah. Moichel peros, and you can sell fruit afilu b'shas hazera, even at the time of planting, because we assume he's going to eat the fruit and not plant the seeds. Umachlo sales, and you can lend him a basket, a measuring basket, even though you know that he's got a silo and he might be using it to measure his grain, because maybe he's going to use it for sitting. Could be.
There's also come up above a comma about whether the shiur.
That we're going to have the Gemara. The Gemara's going to bring it down. You looked ahead. I know you cheated. Okay. Uporet lo mos. And you can do money changing for him, even though you know that he's got workers and he's paying off his workers, because maybe he's going to use the money for some other purpose. But in all these cases, if the buyer specified he wants the stuff to go be over in Avera, he can't give it to him. Okay? Going back to the Gemara now, Itmar. Hamocher shor l'chavero. This is the Gemara from Baba Kama you're referring to. Somebody who sells this classic Gemara. Everybody knows this Gemara. You sell an ox to your friend, and lo and behold, it turns out it was a goring ox. So Rav says it's a sale is null and void. Shmuel says Shmuel says no, you can say I sold it to you for shchita, right? Right? We don't follow the majority, so you can say I thought you were for the minority who buys such oxen for shchita. What are we talking about? If we're talking about a case, now this is not in the Bavli, I believe. This elucidation. What are we talking about? If you're selling to a sharecropper, so even Shmuel has got to concede. Even Shmuel's got to concede was sold for plowing. He's a sharecropper. He's buying for plow purpose. If he sold it to a butcher. Even Rav's got to concede the shchita machar. We're talking about the following case. Is sold to an agent. So agents very generally buy for oxen to resell for plowing, but sometimes they resell it to butchers. So Rav Amar Mekachtos, Rav says Mekachtos because he wants to resell it for plowing. Ushmuel Amar Yochelu Meimar. He can say, I thought you were buying, in this case, to be an agent for a butcher. Now, as the Gemara, I have a kasha. It seems like Rav exchanged his shita for another shita, and so did Shmuel. In which case, how so? These palgun. We have a machlokas. This is a case which is familiar to us from Erchin. You sold the field to somebody during Yovel itself. Now, Rav says the buyer bought it and he's an idiot because he loses his money, right? Because he loses it immediately thereafter in Yovel. Shmuel says it's not a valid kinyan because there's no time for it to remain by the buyer. Now, that seems to be the exact opposite of the Shitas over here. This is a contradiction in Rav's Shita. He seems to have exchanged his views. over there he says the acquisition is a valid acquisition, and you lose your pay, you lose your money, right? Okay, and here, he says, when you buy the ox and it turns out to be a gora, it's a mekach tos. So why don't we say it's a mekach tos by Shemitah too? Let's say the sale falls through, just like it falls through by the ox. So says the Gemara, no. Taman Yovel Mefursamu. Everybody knows the halach of Yovel. So therefore, this buyer, he knew what he was getting himself into. That's why it's not a mekach tos. Everybody knows Yovel. Everybody knows that. But here, mekach tos here, caveat emptor. He was supposed to know that the ox was a gorer. So therefore, he wasn't Mefursam, who wasn't known. So therefore, in this case, Rav says he gets his money back. Similarly, we ask the kasha, Michlafa Shitasi the Shmuel. There's a contradiction. Shmuel seems to have exchanged his Shita. Tamunoimer lo kana. There Shmuel says it's not a valid acquisition by Yovel. V'kol omer kana. And here by the ox he says it is a valid acquisition. Says more, no. There's also not a kasha. Tamar by Yovel Ezadavar Machrolo. For what did he sell? Lo Israel didn't he sell for planting, and there's no capacity to plant. Because the sole use of a field is for cultivation. So therefore, there's no possibility of cultivation because it's the Yovel going back immediately. It's a mekach tos. That's it. The deal falls through. But here, there's another use for a cow. Perhaps an alternate use, a secondary use, but there's another use of cow, shchita. So therefore, here the seller can say, he can say to the buyer, I sold it to you for the other use, which is shchita, and therefore here the deal is sustained. Now, name a Rav ki Beishamai. Let's say Rav holds like Beishamai, because Beishamai in our Mishnah said that Beishamai says you're not allowed to sell a plowing ox during Shemitah. And we still say it's okay because he can say it's for the purpose of Shechita, right? So let's say Rav was like Beishamai, because Rav is saying that the deal falls through there. And here, that's similar to Beishamai over here. It says now the sum of ox, because he clearly intends to use it for plowing. But Shmuel is like Beis Hillel. Just like Shmuel says the deal goes through over there because it's possible that he can use it for Shechita. So the Beis Hillel says the same thing in our Mishnah, that it's possible that it can be used for Shechita. That's more, no. Rav could be Beishamai. It could be Rav is like Beishamai. But people use more Beis Hillel, but you can even know like Beis Hillel. Lei surcha, mishtaha, mishhasa, tlasin yoimin. People, even when people buy an ox for Shechita, they don't check it right away. They leave it around for 30 days. They work with it for a while. They fatten it up for a while. So Rav says, even if it's for the purpose of Shechita, it's still a mekach tos. Why? Because in the time you're going to leave it around, so for those 3 days, it's a mekach tos. The guy says, I'm afraid I'm going to be running around my barnyard, having to save myself from being gored by this ox. So therefore, Rav's holding, even if it's sold for the purpose of Shechita, it's still a mekach tos. Because of the time span in the middle, when I'm going to keep it, I'm afraid to have a goring ox. None of this is in the Bavli.
Yes, that's what it seemed like.
It's totally new. Ushmuel Beis Hillel. This rationale for explaining Rav, that he's going to leave it around for a long time, it's not in the Bavli, right? Ushmuel Beis Hillel. And Shmuel, it's great to have Bekim and Shas here. Ushmuel Beis Hillel.
No, it just struck me when you say, I don't recall ever hearing that. It's such a nice spot.
Shmuel Beis Hillel. And Shmuel is like Beis Hillel. True, sounds like Beis Hillel that he says the sale might be for Shechita, but I feel he's more like Beis Shammai. But he didn't know like Beis Shammai. How so? In our Mishnah, we're dealing with Sayed Avera. We don't go with blinders. We say, Leis Urcha the Barnasha, make us Torah the radio. Nobody is going to buy a plowing ox for the purpose of Shechita. It's not the normal way of a person to Barnasha, a person make us to Shech, Torah the radio, an ox which is intended for plowing. So every Shammai says you can't go with blinders like that. In our Mishnah, if he's buying the ox and it's a plowing ox, it's meant for plowing, and therefore it's Messiah there over there. You can't sell it during Shemitah. Supposed to over there in Baba Kama, Beis Shammai can agree there that if you're buying an ox, and it's not specified whether it's a plowing or slaughtering ox, then you can even then could be that you agree with Shmuel that I say, well, this buyer the seller says you didn't specify, so I sold you a ox which was intended for Shemitah.
So here, according to Beis Shammai, let's say the sale went through, it was based in more the sale.
the basin wouldn't void the sale. They didn't impose hefker based on hefker on it, but the guy transgressed an avera. He transgressed this is the rabbanan of selling something which you shouldn't have sold. Umash lo seasa. Do you have that header? Okay, you have Ravacha though, right? Ravacha, you could lend them your basket. Ravacha, Rabbi Tanchu, Barchia, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan say Hishlo seasa. If you lent him your basket, uva matzo modid bon, you find him measuring it. He's measuring grain. Rats. You don't have to. You're not. It's literally. You're not required to go to him and take it back to him. In other words, when you loaned it to him, there was a possibility of using it for davrater. You don't have to go and stand over him and make sure he's using it for the right purpose. Koshke maskir loan. It's certainly true if you rented it to him. You don't have to refund the rental fee and take back the measuring basket. Okay, halacha Mashelos isha l'chaverta. A woman lends to her friend hakashuda shvi'is, despite the fact that woman is suspect on shmita, nafa, a type of sieve, a kvara is another type of sieve, v'reichayim, and a millstone, the tanur, and an oven. Avalo tavor v'lo titchonim. You're not allowed to grind or to sift with her. Why? Because that's Messiah there of Raver. So you can lend it to her, because maybe she won't use it for forbidden commodities, but you can't do the work together with her. Okay? Similarly, Eishes Chaver, a woman who is the wife of a Talmid Chacham, Mashel Stisha Kaleishas Amoritz, can lend to a woman who's an Amoritz, Nafo, Kvara, these different types of sieves, and Boreris V'tochenes Merakeres. This is not during Shemitah, any other year. And you can grind and sift and winnow with her. But once they introduce the water into the mixture, it's forbidden for them to knead the dough together. Why is that? Because what happens once they introduce water into the mixture? It becomes machshil kabel tuma. She's an amoritz. We're afraid you're going to be metame the challah, which has not yet been taken out. So therefore, you're not allowed to persist her in being metame the challah. And all this permissibility is element neidar kashom is only order to keep the peace among Jews. Machzikin and they goyim b'shvi'is. We don't believe in that value anymore, right? Yeah. We don't believe in that value of keeping peace. That's an archaic value. Okay. Machzikin and they goyim b'shvi'is. One is allowed to give chizuk to goyim during Shemitah. We had this earlier in Masechta. Avaloi they Yisrael, but not to Jews. One can still say Shalom Aleichem even if the Jews are not keeping Shemitah because of the pathways of peace. Rabbi Zira boy kumi Rabbi Mona. Rabbi Zira going to the Gemara. Rabbi Zira asked in front of Rabbi Mona. Masnisa bestam. I think it seems to me that this mission is where you don't know that the woman's going to use these implements for Shemitah stuff. But if she specifies to the lender, I want to borrow this stuff to make Shemitah stuff, so then it's forbidden. Says more of a stamo lav keferushu. Says Omar Lay. Sorry. So he said to him, how can you say this? Is it obvious that regardless, even if she didn't specify it, what else is she going to use it for? She's going to use it for grain, right? You don't use these kelim for other things. So therefore, Rabbi Mona is countering to Rabbi Zira and saying, I don't agree with you. You're assuming that there's a dichotomy between where she specified she's going to use it for grain, and where you didn't specify, it's obvious she's going to use it for grain. That's what these implements are used for. So our Mishnah must have been matir even where she specifies she's going to use it for grain because of the overriding value of Darkei Shalom. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Zira responded, no. Rabbi Zira doesn't appear here, but it's Rabbi Zira responding. Ani Omer, I'll tell you, our Mishnah is talking about only when it's stam, not when it's mefurish. Hi, if it's stam, so what? You still know she's using it for grain? No, she's not. Nopa, she's using lispar. It could be she's using the large sieve to count her grain, lispar b'mos, to count her money. Kivara, the small sieve, lichbar b'chol, to sift sand for gold, whatever. Mechaim, she's using the millstones to grind herbs for ointments. Tanur, maybe she's using the oven litmon to literally means to preserve, but here means to bleach. Lidman bo owning shapish in order to bleach bundles of flax. So Rabbi Zira is saying not necessarily, saying could be it's only mutter b'stam because it's true that it's outlandish, but there's a possibility, remote possibility, she's using it for one of the permissible purposes. But where it's definitely for the other purposes, you can't give it to her.
Just like when we had a previous mission about the cow, the ox being possibly used for slaughter instead of for...
Right. Same idea here. That's right. Here it's even more remote, though. Right. It's even more remote, but still with that, we need that possibility. Right. Pinchas boy. Right, Pinchas asked, "Bameh konsu." How? To what extent when we're talking about these people to whom you're not allowed to lend stuff, or you have to be careful what you lend them? Who are we talking about? B'makom shezorin, and it's ve'ochlin, but it should be really. Okay, even though there's no corrections here, but it means, is it a place where people are suspect to plant, and even if they're not supposed to suspect to plant, as long as they're suspect to eat, that's sufficient. Now bear in mind, to plant during Shemitah isn't this deraisa. You're being Messiah, somebody who's planted during Shemitah, being Messiah, people are transgressing during deraisa. To eat Shvi'is fruit improperly, whether it be svichim, stuff which grew during Shemitah, which you're not allowed to eat. We learned yesterday, you weren't here, that stuff which goes wild during Shemitah, its entire growth was during Shemitah. It didn't start growing old during the 6th year. It's forbidden, and it's not a fruit, it's a grain or a vegetable. You're not allowed to eat. Midrabanan. It's a rabbinic prohibition. Less people go and start planting stuff. Okay? So that's only this is the Rabbanan. So are we machmir, even a place where they're not being zoreh, but they're being ochel? And therefore, we're machmir, we're prohibited to be misayeh to avera, even of people who are just transgressing the avera the rabbanan of eating shvi'is commodities. Or are we talking about makom shezorin v'lo, and not a place v'lo ochlin? In other words, a case where specifically this is the raisa is in effect, not just this is the rabbanan. Manafik mibeno. What's the difference between the two approaches? I'll tell you what the difference is. If we saw the person who's borrowing the implements buying the grain from an Arab merchant, and he's for sure not, so he didn't plant it. There was no Issa D'Oraisa involved here. If you're talking about a place where it's either they plant or even they eat, even this is the Rabbanan, if you see, even though you saw him buy the grain from an Arab also, it's forbidden to participate, to lend them the implements, because you say they're avera. But if it was saying that specifically people who are transgressing this of the raisa are planting during Shemitah, for lochlin, it's not sufficient in a place where they're just eating Shemitah fruit. As long as we know he bought the grain, even if it's prohibited grain, mutter, you're allowed to assist them. Because again, they only prohibited to assist them when they're transgressing this of the raisa, now they're only transgressing this of the rabbanan. Okay? So is that clear? Okay, Messiah, they're over there. It's only where they're transgressing this to the Raisa. Now we're the only transgressing this to the Rabban.
Is that a general principle?
No. As a matter of fact, I don't think we pass them this way. Yeah. Well, we pass even in Messiah by Nisan to Rabban is also. In other words, we pass even a place where Ochlin by itself, that's also. You don't have that header, but I do. Rabbi Yosef Bar China asked, I'll quote Pirkei when it said that everything here is mutter because the Darkei is the entire parak, or Hadot Ilchasa Yisamra, or is it specifically on this last thing about the Eishes Chaver and the Eishes Amor, it's the two wives? Who cares? So nafkamina is if there's no Darkei Shalom involved, right? So is it like, let's say the previous cases where you're allowed to sell the oxen in cases like that, we didn't say there it's because of Darkei Shalom. So let's say there's a case there's no Darkei Shalom, you're allowed to do it anyway, right? Well, he's not going to hate you if you don't do it. Are you allowed to do it anyway? The pathways of peace, to maintain peace among Jews. The archaic value we were speaking about before. Are we here when we mentioned that archaic value?
You just walked in.
Oh, you just walked in. Yeah, well, there used to be a value to keep peace among Jews. Okay, once upon a time. Okay. Rabbi Yosef Bar China boy, I'll call Pirkei Yitzarmus that principle behind all the halachas in parak, or Adoy Echosaka Yitzarmus, specifically on this last halacha. Rabban in the case of B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda Bar Titas said, Min ma delo taninan begitin elohada hilchasa. Since only this last Mishnah is mentioned in Masechta Gittin in Perek Hanizakin, among the things which have to do with Darkei Shalom, it's a long list of things you have to do with Darkei Shalom. Not allowed to steal from a cotton, even though it's not really his stuff because of Darkei Shalom. Other things because of Darkei Shalom. So this is the only thing which is mentioned again. So from this we derive that the only thing which is based on Darkei Shalom is this last halacha of grinding together with a woman who's the wife of an Amoritz. But all the previous halachas apply. You're allowed to sell them implements, etc., even if there's no Darkei Shalom value involved at all. Okay? Talmud Tanin, we learned over there. Nachtum shu'esa b'tumah, a baker who's baking his stuff in tumah is being Matami the Challah, of course. Lo Lashim was not allowed to knead, v'lo orchimo, nor make the bread with him, nor design the bread. The Tani we learned lo borin v'lo tochnin. Of course, you're also not allowed even to sift, nor to not of course. You're not allowed even to sift, nor to grind, nor to clean the flour with him. So ask the Kash, in our Mishnah it says that the Eishes Chaver can help the Eishes Amoritz in all the stuff which is done while it's still dry, before the water comes in. Yet here it's saying with the baker, you're not allowed to help him even in the dry stages, when he's borer or tochen or maraket, which is still when the grain is dry. So what's the difference that here we're more machmir by the baker? So first the Gemara says a very strange answer. The Gemara immediately will reject it. Amar Rabbi Law said, kan l'chulin, kan l'truma. We're in our mission talking about where the Ma'aritz's wife and the Chaver's wife are dealing together in chulin. And that's why they can participate together in the dry stage. The baker is baking truma bread. And therefore we're more machmir, don't even allow anybody to help him in the earlier stage, the stage when it's still dry.
Seems like a simple distinction is one's a professional and one's just a housewife. And a housewife, there's more of an issue of Darkei Shalom. Would it help somebody who wants to do commerce?
That's a very interesting answer, but the Gemara doesn't give it.
Yeah.
It sounds good. Sounds good. I like it. Put it on the side of your text.
Is it possible also that the woman, the wife of the Amoritz, is only a Suffolk Tomei?
All these answers are possible. That's also a good answer. Gemara does not give it, though. Gemara gives a different answer, which is not a bad one. You have to give the Gemara credit. So it says the Gemara, first the Gemara discards this one. The Gemara says, come on. You don't have the next three words, I think, but V'atnina nachtom. We're talking about a baker. Now, Islach l'meimar nachtom b'truma. Bakers are baking truma bread. Kohanim bake truma bread. There's no commercial truma bakery. You can't be talking about bakers baking truma. Get out of here. So it says more, rather, Chavraya Army, they said, in answering why the Nachtom is different than Kambaloses. So about a case where they moisten the grain while it's still grain. And you should know that this is a major problem in modern day matzah baking. All commercial grain now is moistened while it's still grain prior to its being ground. That's why they have to separate special matzah flour from the time of harvesting and not put it through the regular processing, because they actually moisten it. So therefore it's already royal kabel tuma prior to its grinding.
It's been cut, it's been harvested, and it's lying in a
and they spray it. Just moisten it. Yeah. I was remember learning this many years ago when in 1967 I was 5 years old. No, 1969. I was 7 years old. Right, we went to Israel. First time I went to Dagon plant in Haifa. I haven't been back since. And Dagon plants where all the grain comes into Israel, and they moisten it as it comes in. All the grain is moistened before they process it. The raw grain it makes it easier to process. So that's a big problem for matzahs and for tumah, right? Because then it's already mushal kabel tumah. So all commercial grain is moistened prior to the grinding. Okay, so that's why by nachtom it's different. It depends if it's already been moistened or not, and by nachtom it's already more moistened. Masnisa Messiah l'chavraya is a brisa which is a raya for the chavraya who drew this distinction. The tanan of a mishatatil mayim Actually, our Mishnah is the raya. The Tanai, because in the Mishnah, Mishatati Maim, once the water is introduced, Lotiga, so you can't touch together with it, with the woman who's the Amoretz. Shem Achzikin Derever, you cannot help those people who transgress Averis. So you see that the moisture is the issue in question. Okay, weiter. Now I have a header here. Machzikin de Goyim. One is allowed to fortify the goyim. Now, from here to the end of the parak, it's a Gemara we had already before. In the fourth parak, Rabbi Chiv, Rabbi Ami, Chad Amar once said, what does it mean to be machzik goyim? To Chad Amar, Charosh bo tavu, we had this on Sunday. Charosh bo tavus, plow it well. But a nasiv lo minach b'sar shmitza, and I'll buy for you at the shmitza, you even have to say that to a goy who's working for sure during shmitza. The Charina Amar, the other one say you're not allowed to say that, but you are allowed to say ayasher. You should have more strength. Mad Amar chorish bo tavos, according to the opinion, who says that you can tell a goy plow well. Ma shalim b'shol b'shleima. To what extent can you wish well to a Jew who's working during shmitza? Even to the extent of saying him ayasher, may you have more strength. Mandamar Yasher, he who says that by a goy are allowed to say is Yasher. My shalom Shlom, to what extent can you say give shalom to a Jew? Give shalom Yisrael, like any two Jews give shalom to each other. Shalom Aleichem. Dilma, we have a Meiser. Rab Chanina bar Papa Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani over Nachami Choshe Shevi'is. They passed by somebody who was plowing during Shemitah. Amleir Shmuel bar Nachman said, Shmuel bar Nachman said, so the Jew is transgressing Shemitah, Ayasher, may you have more strength. Amleir Rab Chanina bar Papa said, Lokin Ilfan Rabbi, didn't you teach us, Rabbi? V'lo amru ovrim birkas Hashem Aleichem. The passers-by did not bestow the blessing of God upon them. For you, we derive, you're not allowed to tell those who plow during Shemitah, may you have more strength. So he said to him, to reap psukim, you know. Lidrosh, to dash to them, you don't know. You're an Amoretz. Over him rather refers to Elu Umosa Olam. You don't have the words Umosa Olam, right? These are the goyim shavim, those who pass through the world, are going to pass from the world. The goyim are transient in this world. They weren't mevarech hapanas. They weren't mevarech us. They didn't say the Jewish people, birkas Hashem aleichem, may the blessing of God be upon you. My sohom, what did the Jews say to them? You fools! Barcheinu idchem b'shem Hashem, bless us in the name of God. Don't you realize, though the Eichem is not sufficient, Shekar brachas abosalam, all the blessings comes to the world, they be schusena, they're for us. Ve'enatar ma'omrim alonu. Why don't you come and say to us, Bo v'tolu lachem min habrachas, come and take from our bounty for the Gashmias, in order that you should give us from the Ruchnias. Not only that, not only don't you give us from your bounty, from the Gashmias, but you put upon us Paisin, Vizimos, Zimios, Golios, Varnonios, all sorts of unfair taxes. You are fools. You don't realize what we provide with you when you're not reciprocating in kind. Okay, new parak, maps. That's one map. That's two maps. That's three maps. My favorite subject in school was always geography. I always dreamt of becoming a cartographer when I grew up. Didn't happen. But from the Kavanaki, from the back, that's fold out. Yeah. No, this is actual size. It's a fold out. Okay. All right. There are three types of land vis-a-vis Shemitah. Three types of areas, I should say. Kosher ziku ole bavel me Eretz Yisrael v'aksiv. Now, map Aleph. That's the section which has, by coincidence, the little Aleph in it. Do you see that Aleph? The Aleph in a circle? That's Eretz Yisrael proper. That was conquered both by those who came up from Egypt and by Rishon, and those who came up from Bavel and by Sheni. Okay, they conquered that whole area. So there, lo ne'achal, not allowed to eat svichim there, and anything which goes as shvitz. Lo ne'avani, not allowed to do any work there during Shemitah. That's all the way from Kadesh Barnea in the south to Kziv in the north. Kosher Ziv. Now the next level of land is
That's the city mentioned in Gittin.
Yeah. That's the city mentioned. We're going to have the parallel sugya here. All that only Mitzrayim and Bayis Rishon, they conquered two additional areas. Those are the area which extends northeast past Damascus towards the Euphrates River. You see that whole area over there? Where the Beis and the Gimel are, right? Beis Gimel above. And then there's another strip which is on the seashore, which has little Dalet next to it, which goes up the coast of Lebanon, perhaps even all the way up to the southern boundary of Turkey, although that's not clear. Okay? So those two areas are the area zone B in terms of Shemitah, and there, there's no Kedusha Shevi'is to any of the produce. Avalo Neva, we're not allowed to work there during Shemitah. Now, that's the area between the two zones B. See, there's an area between the two zones B. Vaka Valley, right. So, Nechal that has no Kedusha Shevi'is, you're allowed to eat there. There's no, and Nevad, you're allowed to work there as well. Okay? Now, Tanya, going to the Gemara. We're going to spend a lot of time on this geography. Tanya, we learned. Eila chukim, these are the laws. Eila midrashos, that's the medrash, the drashos which we learned. Amishpatim, elu adinim, those are the monetary laws. Asher tishmun shushu maintain zu mishnah. Lasos to do zu maisa, those are things you have to do. Ba'aretz, in the land. Ba'aretz atem chayvim lasos. Where are you chayv to do all these things? In the land of Israel. V'yatem chayovim lasos b'chutz la'aretz. You're not chayv in all these mitzvahs in chutz la'aretz. V'adayin ani yomer. Maybe I'll stay. Mitzvah shein tluyis ba'aretz. The mitzvahs which are contingent on the land, eino no go sel ba'aretz. They only apply in Eretz Yisrael. Yochel afilu mitzvah shein tluyis ba'aretz. What about mitzvahs which are not contingent on the land? Perhaps we'll even say them lo you no go sel ba'aretz. They only apply in Eretz Yisrael. No. So he says, Hishomer lachem benivta levavchem. Be careful lest your heart goes astray. The Gomer said, "V'chora Hashem b'chem," and the anger of God will come against you. The Gomer, and even after you're going to Golus, because B'chora Hashem is after Golus, right? That's the part of Shema which is after Golus. Nonetheless, v'samtem mitzvaya elu alavavchem. Should have my words on your hearts. Afil kshatem goylim. Even when you're in Golus, v'samtem mitzvaya elu, should have my words on your heart. What is that? What mitzvahs are those? Ma'islach, what it was referring to. Kigon, any mitzvahs which are akin to Tefillin, the Talmud Torah, Mezuzah, which are all mentioned at the end of that parasha, right? Because at the end of Yerushalmi, it mentions Tefillin, it mentions Talmud Torah, it mentions Mezuzah, right? Shein and Tluyim Bo, since they're not contingent on the land, Nogim Ben Baretz Ben B'chutz, those apply both in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. Av Kol Davar Shein, so just like they are both in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, Av Kol Davar, so to anything else, Shein Toli Baretz is not contingent on the land of Israel, who Noig Baretz Ben Chutz La'aretz applies both to Eretz Yisrael and to Chutz La'aretz. Ask the Gemara, wait a minute. Me'ata. But if once we know that there's certain mitzvahs which are contingent on the land, we should go, once the Churban Bayis Rishon occurred, you Peturim, maybe they should be exempt for all eternity. How do you know when they came back for Bayis Sheni, they became mechuyav in the mitzvah Satluyis Baretz? How do you know that came up again? So it says the Gemara, Ksiv, I'll tell you why. It says, Vayasu kol hakohol, all the congregation Hashavim me'ashevi, who came back from the captivity of Babylon, in the time of the same base of English, they made sukkahs. Now, this can't be referring to real sukkahs, because look what it says. Vayeshu b'sukkahs, they sat in sukkahs. Ki lo asu became miyamei Yeshua ben Nun came. Because they had not done that since the time of Yeshua ben Nun. So is that possible to say they didn't sit in sukkahs at the time of Yeshua ben Nun? It's not possible. So therefore, how does Yerushalmi Dash Pasuk Drosh is not in the Bavli? The Yerushalmi Dash Pasuk that they made a sukkah of Shechina. They reconsecrated the land of Israel. Sukkah is sukkah stavin on a folis. They reconsecrated the land with Shechina, and also means they made it holy again. So that's how we're dashing the pasuk. That when they came back from Babel, they reconsecrated the land and made it holy again. And mitzvah Satluyis Baretz all came back onto the land. Okay, that's what they did.
that implies that the Kedusha of Eretz Israel left during the Gula.
During those 70 years it did.
Bobby says that too.
Yeah, that for halachic kedusha it lost during that time. Not not agaric kedusha, but halachic kedusha did.
The whole question in the Bible,
Yeah.
Kedusha or Kedusha Shnia.
This is the same question. Yeah.
Is it based upon a pasuk or just based upon logic?
No, it's based upon the next pasuk we're going to bring. With not this pasuk. This only the Yerushalmi brings. We're going to see another pasuk which we'll see in a minute. But first, we're on a tangent. V'lama Yeshua. Why did it say Yeshua without a hey? It's not nice. What happened today? Rabbi Hillel Braid Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman. He said, "Pagam HaKosu Kavod Tzadik Bekerer." We damaged the covet of the tzaddik who was already dead and buried, Yoshua, not because he did anything wrong, but we made covet tzaddik b'shaitu in order to enhance the honor of the tzaddik who was alive at the time, Ezra. In other words, he wanted to say that it wasn't putting Yoshua down so much as wanting to show how Ezra was chashuv, that he outshone Yoshua at this moment by bringing his, bedraggled band of miserable people to Eretz Yisrael and resettling the land. Right? Yeah, religion. I hope a religious Zionist at least. Okay. Hikish biyasimi me'ezra biyasimi Yoshua. Be as it may, there's a parallel being drawn between the time that came by Ezra and the time that came by Yeshua. This time when they came at the time of Yeshua, originally they were exempted, then became chayev. Even though at the time it goes both they were exempt, now they became chayev again. But when they became chayev, to what extent did they become chayev? Now already all the chiyuvim in Eretz Yisrael were their rights once more. Although the seem we darshan from the following pasuk, which the Bible does bring down. Ve'viyacha Hashem elokech l'oretz asher Yoshua v'secha v'yirishto v'gomer. God will bring you to the land which your forefathers conquered. My Yerusha Savosecha midvar Torah, just like the Yerusha your forefathers was the Raisa of Yerushalmi, so to your conquest is also meet the Torah works with the Raisa. Not only that, ve'tifcha. God will make you good and better than your forefathers. Meaning, your forefathers were exempt prior to the time they entered the land of Israel, they became chayiv. You too were exempt and now became chayiv. But you had a milah. Your forefathers, times Yoshua, their kedusha was contingent on their own dominion over the land of Israel. But in times of Ezra, even though you were under the dominion of the kings of Persia, nonetheless the kedusha took effect. And so too, your advantages, your forefathers took the 14 years of conquering in the body of the land before the kedusha took effect. But you came once you went to the land of Israel, you immediately became chayev midoraisa. And your forefathers, they only became chayev when they conquered the entire land. But you, Rishon, each part at first come, first serve. As you conquered each portion of the land of Israel, you acquired him as chayev, becomes chayev in Trumas Amaitis Midoraisa. Now, that's one opinion. Rabbi Lezer argues. Rabbi Lezer Amar Me'alein on their own, meaning the Rabbanan. Kibu Aleim as a Maisos. All the Maisos in Bai Shem with the Rabbanan, not the Raisa. Why? Matam, what Pasuk teaches us this? The Chsiv, it says, Ubechozos, nonetheless, even though we're not required to, so the words Bechozos sound like we're not required, but nonetheless, Anachtu Korsi Ramona, the people who return, with Ezra said, we're making a covenant, the Kaisvim, and we're going to write down, Valachosum, and we're going to sign it. So Reinu, our officers, Levienu, our Levim, Kohanenu, and our Kohanim, and it says later in the Pasuk, Maaser and Maseinu Levim, we're going to give Meiser, we're going to tithe our land and give it to the Levim. So really, according to his opinion, when they returned to Israel in the second base of Mikdash, there was rabbinic. And the Kavanoki brings down, you know why it was rabbinic? Because in order for Trumas, according to some opinions, according to this opinion, Rabbi Lozer, in order for Trumas to be the rights, it's not just enough that you acquire the land, but most Jews have to be living in the land of Israel. and the majority of Jews at that time remained in Bavel. Only 40,000 came up with Ezra and Nehemiah. Okay, so that's why it was the Rabbanah. So the more asking this, the whole thing is the Rabbanah. What does it do with the rest of the pasuk, which says, we accept upon ourselves to give Bechor. Bechor is the Raisa, you can't make it, it's not the Rabbanah. To give Bechor to a Kohen is the Raisa. So clear the pasuk is even referring to the Raisas. Saying the Gemara, no. Once they accept upon themselves things they were not required to accept, so that, once they're writing a document, I feel even things they would be chayav on anything. So the pasuk gives them credit. As if they're writing down the document was the original requirement, even though it wasn't. But it's the special credit we're giving the Olei Bavel. That since so many things they accepted on their own accord, it's as if they accepted even things which they were required to anyway to write on their own. The pasuk is giving them a nice pat on the back. Well, okay. Rabbi Yossi says the rights will do with B'chol. Nonetheless, we did it, which sounds like it's only the Rabbanah, right? So it says, since they accept upon himself with a shining countenance, in other words, they were happy to accept mitzvahs. Because the apostle credit gives them credit, as if they accepted even the Doraisas upon themselves on their own accord. Says Rabbanan, what is what the Bible says? You'll conquer it. Be an even greater conquest than your forefathers' conquest. He explains that's going on the eventual future when Mashiach comes. Your forefathers, Yorshu Eretz Shiva Amim, they only inherited the land of the 7 nations. When Mashiach comes, we'll get 10 lands, right? Like the Likud symbol, Al Shtei Gedot HaYarden, right, on both sides. So there's one of the other Jewish ideologies is shown by the wayside. So we're going to get 3 other nations. The Chsiv, it says, Es HaKeniv, Es HaKeniziv, Es HaKadmoni. What are these? The Tanya learned Rabbi Meir Omer, that's Nabatia, which is in the south of Israel. Vara Rabbiah, Arabia, which is the southeast. There's Shalmaya, not sure exactly where Shalmaya is. No, it's not. Rabbi Shimon Omer are Ardisikus, which is Damascus. Vasya, Asia Minor. Vaspamia, which is a city somewhere in Syria. If you take a look at your map Aleph, so where the little gimel is in the circle, Apamia, that's Aspamia. So that's the 3rd land. Okay? See Aspamia? Okay, Apamia, that's Aspamia. So those lands are going to be eventually part of the promised land. Okay? Let's ben Yaakov Omar, Asya, which is Asia, the Turkey, which is Asia too, the Carthage, Carthage, which is much further, I think it's Carthage. It's Northern Africa, right? I think Carthage is Carthage. It might be somewhere else, though. Could be Carthage. Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure. I'm assuming that's what it is, but I don't know that for a fact. Okay? In any event, says the Gemara, yet another interpretation, there's Ben Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Edom u'Moav Rashis Pnei Ammon. That's, if you look at map out, you see on the southeast corner, you have Edom and Moab and Ammon, which were not part of Eretz Yisrael in the past, will be part of Eretz Yisrael in the future. I don't know why we want it. It's all desert and there ain't no oil there. But in any event, that's all promised us. And concerning the eventual future Gulam, Yemosa Mashiach, also we learn you'll be better than our forefathers. Your forefathers, even though they redeemed, they were eventually subjugated again. But in the world to come, only once you are redeemed, you will no longer ever be put under subjugation again. Matam, what pasuk teaches us is pasuk there says in Yeshaya, in Yirmiyah, Shalu naru, ask, please, and see. Im yul yoled zachar, if a male can give birth. Kishem sheina zachar yoled, just like a male does not give birth. Kach atem mishateni. Still to you, once you are redeemed, od ein atem mishtabdim, you can no longer be subjugated again. In other words, a goal is considered to be a birth, a negative birth, a labor pains. So just like a male does not have labor pains, so to the ultimate future will not have any goals, any pains accompanying them.
Will these lands require take on the requirements of
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That point yeah. There's even an opinion that holds that nowadays when the Israeli army conquers lands, it becomes Kodesh B'Kedusha Shemitah. We don't pass it that way. Tanya, we learned. Remind me after share. I want to say something to you. I have something I want to say.
So we don't pass that that's considered Kiddush Rabbis. That's all the homework.
Israeli army nowadays. That's what Tzitz Eliezer says. But nobody listens to him. If they did, it'd be devastating because all the Gush Katif stuff would be, Chaim and Trumas and Maisus, and nobody takes Trumas and Maisus off of that. Okay? Tanya, we learned. I think. That's what if I know. Now let's go to map. I think the best map to see this is map Bays. Actually, it's not a good map to see it. Map Gimel. If you walk from Akko to Gziv, you will notice that let me read the Gemara. Mimino lemizrach, on your right to the east, you're going from Akko. You see Akko? Akko, you see the little olive? That's Gziv. You go see a little bit south of that is Akko, right? Gziv actually exists. Gziv is around where Naria is, I think it is. It's Akko we know exists. Yeah, you look at map page, you see he has Naria drawn in. Yeah, it's between Naria and Rosh Hanikra, because Sulma Shel Tzor is Rosh Hanikra. You can see that on a map base. Okay, so name it. If you're walking from Akko to Gziv, so Miyamino on your right, Lemizrach to the east, Haderech. Torah B'Shemeret Ami, that's Tor. It's not Chutz La'aretz, right? It's not the land of the nations, because it's Eretz Yisrael. Chayvus and Meiser, so B'Shvi'is. Chayvus and Meiser Shvi'is. Achivolach Hashiptur, unless you know that it's part of Chutz La'aretz. Mismol L'Marav, to your left, on the west, is Tamei B'Shemeret Ami. It's considered to be Chutz La'aretz. U'Ptur Min HaMeiser, it's an exempt from Meiser. U'Min HaShvi'is, Achivolach Hashiptur, unless you know that this part, there's a particular piece of land which is part of Eretz Yisrael. Achuma Gziv until you reach Gziv. Ashma Rabbi Yossi Mishum Aviv Ad Lavlavu. This is true. The same halach about this trip applies to even further north to the city of Lavlavu, and I don't know where Lavlavu is. I don't think it's on any of these maps.
This map really shows Gziv outside of
Eretz Yisrael. Now this caused a lot of confusion when we learned Gimel. This sugya. Because Rashi didn't understand it, and the Ramban didn't understand it, because they never saw maps of Eretz Yisrael. So they didn't understand. They didn't have it. What you call it?
the maps that you gave us at that time were certainly this way.
Right, because the Gemara knew it. But Rashi, if you learn Rashi and Ramban, it gets very confusing because they didn't know exactly where Akko and Gziv were. So, but here you see clearly that they didn't conquer the seashore. If you look a little further down the map, you see consistently the seashore was really not theirs. A lot of parts of the seashore were not theirs, right? That's the way it was. Okay? What? No explaining. That must be why they didn't conquer it. Akko Atzma Mai. What's the status of Akko itself? So we already have fascinating Gemara. It was really fascinating. The whole Gemara here is fascinating. What's the halach of Akko? Rav Acha Bar Yaakov Shem Rabbi Yami said, Mintrei u'v'doi the Rabbi, two mice from two episodes that took place with Rabbi. On any Alfin, we derive the Akko yesh bo mishum Eretz Yisrael. Akko is elements of Eretz Yisrael. V'yesh bo mishum Chutz Laretz has elements of Chutz Laretz as well. The Rebbe Ava Ba'Akko. Rebbe was an Akko. Chamsud ochlin pita nekia. He saw them eating very good fine bread. Now you only get very good fine bread if you moisten it first. Remember I told you, like the dagon, you only moisten it, and he moistened it first because royal kabel tuma. So he was upset because in Eretz Yisrael they tried to avoid making grain that fine and that good because that would imply that you're going to make bread susceptible to makabel tuma at a much earlier stage when people who might have access to it who are tamei.
You say that the baker was a chaver, he wasn't an amal. So you make sure that...
Yeah, but in general, it seems that at Takana not to do it that way. So he got upset. He said, "Mato latatin. What are you doing? You're moistening the grain. That's no good." So this was in Akko. So it must be that Akko is partially, at least, Eretz Yisrael. Amrulei. So they said to him, no. They tried to excuse themselves. They said, "Talmid echad barlakan." So an individual came to here for Hoyrelano paskin for us. Hamei baits him that egg water shem machshir is not machshir kabel tuma. And we said vanan shalkin bein, and we cooked eggs. The latatin, and we moistened the grain b'meimeon with the water in which we cooked the eggs. So it's not machshir kabel tuma. Oive, says Gemara. Savin meimar meishel shabeitim. They thought that Talmud meant that the water in which eggs are cooked is not machshir l'kabel tuma. But what that Talmud really meant is v'inu lo amar ela beitzim atzmon. What he meant is the yolk of an egg is not machshir l'kabel, not the yolk, the white of an egg. Well, it's not machshir l'kabel tuma because it's not a beverage. So Rabbi Yaakov Aridim Yosef in that time Gazru, they made a gzera shlo yeh Talmud moire ora. A Talmud Shever paskin because people misunderstand him. He doesn't know how to paskin properly. That's why he needs smicha. Rabbi Chia b'shem Rav Chuna said Talmud Shehoira, a Talmud who paskin afilu kalocha, even if he got it right. Ain't a rasa or a his psak is not a val psak. Tana we learned Talmud Shora aloch livnei rabba, Talmud who now we're off on a tangent. A Talmud who paskin aloch in front of his Rebbe chaya misa. It's liable death penalty. Tani, we learned b'shem Rabbi Lezer, named Rabbi Lezer. Well, Mesu Noda V'Avihu, Nodavihu did not die for any other reason. El Shorbi b'nei Moshe Rabbeinu, only because they passed in front of Moshe and their Rebbe. Umaytza b'Talmid Echad Shora Aloch l'nei Rabbi Lezer Rabbo. There's a certain student who passed Aloch in front of Rabbi Lezer's Rebbe. Varma Lo Ima Shalom Ishto, and Rabbi Lezer said to Ima Shalom, that was his wife's name. Whoops. Zeino Motu Shaboso. This Talmud who passed in front of me, he's not going to complete this week. And, of course, Loitzi Shabbos he dropped dead before next Shabbos. Harmley Talmud, so Talmud said to him, Rebbe, Noviato, you must be a prophet. They were Lubavitchers.
Well, they were eavesdroppers.
What? They're eavesdroppers?
Eavesdroppers, because he's supposed to direct this to his wife.
Yeah. They heard him speaking, right. They said, Lo Novi Anochi, Lo Ben Novi Anochi. I'm not a prophet, I'm not a son of a prophet. Ani Mekubal. I have a tradition. Shekol Tamid Amor Aloch Bifnei Rabba. Any Talmud who passes Aloch in front of his Rebbe, Chayav Misa is liable for death. B'dei Shemayim, of course. Tani, we learned also Talmud Loros Aloch Bifnei Rabba. It's forbidden for a Talmud to pass in front of his Rebbe. Achu Rochok Mimenu Shnei Mil, unless he's 12 mil distant from his Rebbe's place. How do we learn that? Just like nobody in the camp of Israel was allowed to paskin because all considered to be the presence of Moshe Rabbeinu, you have to be distant 12 mil from a Rebbe before you paskin. Umatam, a pasuk teaches us that the Bnei Yisrael's camp was 12 mil in span. The encampment of the Jews was from Be'ove Beis Shimos until Ove Shilti Shitim. Become, we have a tradition, this is in the Bavli too, that how far is that? Shnei Masar mil, that's 12 mil in length. Chada Rabbi Tanchum Barchia, and similarly we have Maisek, this Rabbi Tanchum Barchia, Hava B'Chefer. It was a certain town called Chefer, V'Hava Sholin Lane, they asked some Shilas, V'Hava Morini, Paskin them. Amalei said, Locain Ilfan Rabbi, didn't you tell us, Rabbi? Show us the Talmud Loris Aloch Ne Rabbo. Talmud cannot pass can hold in front of his Rabbi. Achirochin Ben Shnemos Armil until he's 12 mil distant from him. Kemachne, so like they were in the camp in the desert. For Rabbi Muna Rabbach and Rabbi Muna, your Rabbi. Yossi B'Tzparin is in Tzipori, which is within 12 mil. Amar Lun, so he said, Yesi Olai, there should come upon me the loyalties if I didn't know. If I mean that I didn't know. Had I known, I would not have done it, of course. He shaitim at that time, Lahore didn't paskin, even though his city was not, he was in a different city, because the city was within 12 mil of his Rebbe's location. Right, now that's one Maisa with Rebbe Nako. There's another Maisa with Rebbe, which indicates that Nako had part of it was Eretz Yisrael. There's another Maisa with Rebbe Nako. Rebbe Abba Bako, Chama Chad Barnashi, saw a certain individual, Salim Yekipsa was going over the bridge. Over the bridge. Amar Lei said, Leisa Bray, the Palin Cohen, aren't you the son of so-and-so Cohen? Cohen, so wasn't your father Cohen? So if you're Cohen, what are you not allowed to do? You can't leave Eretz Yisrael? Right? Because it's Tamei outside Eretz Yisrael. So how you can leave? So the guy said, Einov Shalabo Gvoros. My father's eyes were haughty. Nasa Isha Sheno Genesto, and she married a woman who was forbidden to him, meaning Gerusha, the Chilos Isha, and he defiled me. In other words, I'm a Cholo, I'm allowed therefore to go into Chutz La'aretz. Tani, we learned, Tchumei Eretz Yisrael Shulziku Oli Bavel. The boundaries of Eretz Yisrael which Oli Bavel captured. Now, some of the cities which are mentioned here are on map Gimel, but I'm not going to go and look for all of them right now. But you can find many of them on map Gimel. They are these cities are Parshas Ashkelon. I'm just going to read through the list. Parshas Ashkelon, Chomas Migdal Shir, Shena Deror, Shura Dako, V'Katzu de Galila, Ukvarto, Ubeis Nisa, V'Kubaya, Umilcha de Kur, Uburiye Rapsa, V'Tafnis, V'Sanpata, Umecharsa de Yasir, Umematzia de Davasa, V'Rosh Bnei Gaton, V'Gaton Atzma, Gaton itself, Umei Sfar, Umachreshes, Umidal Choruv, V'Ulam Rapsa, V'Nukvasa Diyun, V'Chakeres, V'Charko Rabba, Ubar San Gada, V'Tarnigolo Eloah Dileim Kisori, which Tarnigolo Eloah, the higher rooster, that was the name of the town, above, which is north of Kesari, of Caesarea. V'Tarkuna de Mitcham Lebatzra, the Tarkuna which is in the vicinity of Batzra. Umalach de Zarboy, V'Namri Nebei Sachli, Uknas, V'Rafach, I think that's Rafiach. V'Derech HaGdoy Loch Zemidbar, and the great highway to the desert. V'Cheshbon, V'Yavka, V'Nachla de Zored, Urekam Kea, V'Ginayat Ashkelon, the gardens of Ashkelon. All these are part of Eretz Yisrael. Okay? Says more, Ashkelon Atzmo Mao. What about Ashkelon itself? Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yaakov Shem Rabbi Zira said, Mimad Tani Ginayat Ashkelon, so it says Ginayat Ashkelon was part of Eretz Yisrael. Hadamra Ashkelon Atzma Kol Chutz, must be Ashkelon itself is outside, as you see in map Gimel. See Ashkelon is outside? Suzuki, you see where Ashkelon is? Ashkelon is outside the land of Israel. Okay? Tani, we learned Rabbi Simon B'Shem Rabbi... Right. Ashkelon Ladoram, Ashkelon Kidoram. That's right, it's on this out. That's the first Mishnah Git. Tani, we learned Rabbi Simon B'Shem Rabbi Chalifoy said, and Rabbi and Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi ben Akfar, both said, interesting thing, so Gemara is going to pick up on this for some time. Nimno Alavir Ashkelon, they voted on the airspace of Ashkelon, and V'tiaru. They said it's Torah, even though it's Chutz La'aretz. Normally, all land of Chutz La'aretz is Tamei. They made an exception. Pirai Pinchas ben Yair, based on the testimony of Pinchas ben Yair. Sha'amar said, Yordim Ayinu L'Sir Kish Ashkelon. We would go down to the marketplace in Ashkelon, the Shuk, the Lochin Chitim, we would take grain. By the way, we just barely done 2 blocks so far, right? We just made it right now, right? Not quite yet? Not quite, you're right. Okay. It's easy Gemara, it's just very long blot. It's like brachas in the morning, this is nice. He said we would go down to the marketplace in Ashkelon. V'lochim chidim would take grain. Boiling the rain would go back to our own city. The tovlim would go to the mikvah. Ochlim truma sein l'erev. We would eat truma that night. Now the key is they would eat truma that night. If Ashkelon was like Chutzlarts, how long would they have to wait to eat truma?
First off, they had to wait till the next day to be told.
More than that. Because they were goes at what tumah on it? What tumahs Chutzlar have? Tumahs mace. It's like entering a graveyard. When if you enter a graveyard, how long do you have to wait? A week, and you have to also. And
With that night.
what process do you have to undergo?
You have to go through the whole thing of paraduma?
Paraduma, right. Anytime a Kohen go to Chutz La'aretz, what? Yeah, that's right. Anytime a Kohen goes to Chutz La'aretz, he wants to come back and eat Truma, he's got to go through the Paraduma process. So if Ashkelon was a Chutz La'aretz, he wouldn't be able to go to the mikveh that night and go eat Truma that night. He would have to go through 7 days plus Paraduma ashes. So we see clearly that they didn't give it out loch of Chutz La'aretz. Why? Because it's so close to Eretz Yisrael. It was too close. They couldn't give it out loch of Chutz La'aretz. The next day after they heard this testimony, they voted on it. After they passed its Torah, yet they still they said they voted on it. Lepochamin Maisrus that should be exempt from Maisrus Ubertru, and they concluded exempt. So it has a contradictory halach. It's a paradox. It's not Chutz La'aretz vis-a-vis Tumah. It's Torah. But it's Chutz La'aretz vis-a-vis Meiser. Whatever grows there is exempt from Meiser.
Louis Ginsburg wouldn't say that it's contradictory.
Well, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi was displeased with this. Moshe Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi is Yadav. He drew out of this. Shamistamech al Ben Akfar. Because he was relying on Ben Akfar. Yossi Ben Akfar said it was to the land, the airspace is Torah. He said if the airspace is Torah, then we have to take Truma, to Trumas and Maisos off there. We can't make this paradoxical statement. Amar Lo, they said, B'ni, Lo Amar Toli, Minema Mashachtas Yadecha Mimenu. You didn't ask me. So he said, Rabbi Shmuel said to one of the other people there, I'm not sure exactly to who, I guess to Ben Akfar. He said, you didn't ask me why I withdrew from this whole thing. I would have told you. Now let me tell you. In terms of Tumantara of Eretz Hamim is a D'Rabbana. So I'm a tar. It's like hey Omru ve'im Omru. We have the right to declare some areas Tomei and some areas Torah. But now on the other hand, I'm afraid that perhaps it was conquered by the Jews at some point in history. In that case, Hechani Pochim B'Dvar Torah can exempt it from the Chiyuv of Maisos, which is the Deraisa. Now, he obviously holds the Makav Noki points out, Kedusha was trying to kitchel shaita v'kitchel asilavo. It's a machlokas in the Bavli, right? Where the first Kedusha of Holy Mitzrayim was permanent. Till now, our Sugya held it was not. So we obviously held it was. And therefore is afraid maybe at some point in the past, Ashkelon was conquered. And therefore it's Chaim Midaraisa. And the Gemara is in fact going to bring Psukim, which indicate that Ashkelon was at one point conquered. Which is going to strengthen Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi in Shoftim. Yeah, in Shoftim. No, in Shoftim. Shoftim. It was conquered. The first parak in Shoftim. This is kind of a tangent, but it's still relevant to the main issue. Even in Eretz Yisrael, a house in which a goy has lived for 40 days is tummy. Why do you think that's true?
She gave birth to
Very good. Boy, you guys are on the ball. You mamish think Talmudic now. She gave her, that's right. So, Brett, she got it on the spot. She might have given birth to a naphil after 40 days, was a bona fide naphil, and buried it in the house, so therefore it's tummy.
We had it before.
No, I don't know. In this context, still, I don't know. I'm impressed. All right, so now, what about Ashkelon? Does Ashkelon, you have to wait 40 days, after they made this Gzeir, the Ashkelon store, what if the houses were going to live, do they have to wait 40 days from now? Or since going to live there before, so it counts the time they lived there before. And every house where there is a goy is Tomei. Okay, so that's what Gemara says. Rabbi Simon, Mishatisha Gzeir, once the Gzeir is made, Arboim Yom. Still, you need another 40 days for each house of a goy to become Tomei. Rabbi said no. That which you assumed was Tomei till now was a mistake. It was Torah till now, right? But the houses of the goyim, that makes no difference, right? Each and every house where a goy was, that we're afraid maybe there's a neville there, so immediately that's Tomei because of Eretz, even though 40 days has not passed from the time that the Gzeir of Tara was decreed. Ramana said, "Lo kedem Rabbi Yaakov Barach b'shem Rabbi Zira." Isn't obvious that Ashkelon is exempt from Maasros? Didn't Rabbi Yaakov say b'shem Rabbi Zira? Mean mad tzani ginayat Ashkelon from that which ginayat Ashkelon is included in Eretz Yisrael. Hada mara Ashkelon chutz from this drive the Ashkelon is outside of Eretz Yisrael, and it's obviously exempt from Trumas and Maasros. No, it's not a raya. Because I'll tell you why. Listen to this. Tzor. Look at Tzor on the map. See how far Tzor is outside Eretz Yisrael? It's higher, right? But Tzor, it's if you go, it's also for a Kohen to go there. But nonetheless, think somebody doesn't buy land, buys land there is exempt from Trumas and Maasros. If you bought land entire, you have to take Trumas and Maasros off of it. Midrabbanan. Because it's in the vicinity of Eretz Yisrael. So that's why there's a major Havamina by Ashkelon. If on Tyre, which is so far from Eretz Yisrael, they made a Gzeir, you have to take off Meiser. So certainly they should make such a Gzeir in Ashkelon.
Didn't they do it to Syria anyway, that they had to give
Syria, but this is not even Syria.
I understand.
Yeah.
Syria,
but this is part of Zone B. You're right. This is a valid point you're raising. You're correct, actually. You look back at map Aleph. You see, this is part of Zone B, right? Remember, Zone A is the area conquered by Olei Bavel. Zone B is the area conquered by Olei Mitzrayim. So actually, you're giving, what you're saying is correct. Both Zone B's are Chayiv and Trumas and Maasros the Rabbanan, right? And that's why we have to say that Ashkelon is not even Zone B, it's Zone C. It's the outside of Eretz Yisrael altogether. That's why it's a Kiddush, and that's why the Gemara had to tell us. That's what it says. The Lotis Bar Meimer of Hochakin, shouldn't they? That Ashkelon is part of Zone B. That's why we say explicitly state that they made a vote and they exempted from Maasros. Let's just go a little bit further. Rabbi Simon, we're so far behind. Rabbi Simon, Rabbi Avo, Havu Yasvin Varma, they were sitting saying, Vaksiv, wait a minute. It's explicit possible be named Shreiftim. Vayilkol Yudas Azov Esgula, Yehuda conquered Azov and its area. They say Azov should be part of Eretz Yisrael. Es Ashkelon Esgula, it says Yehuda conquered Ashkelon and its area. They say Ashkelon is part of Eretz Yisrael. Me'at also says more wait. That's the end of the kasha. Says more wait. Me'at, if that's the case, Hahen Nacham Mitzrayim. It mentions there Nacham Mitzrayim too. It says in Melachim somewhere else. It says that Am Yisrael came from Nacham Mitzrayim. So up till Nacham Mitzrayim should be Kodesh, should be also part and parcel of Eretz Yisrael. See where Nacham Mitzrayim is? Look at map Aleph. Vadi El Arish. See that? Now Meir Kahana held Nachum Mitzrayim is the Nile. I heard him say that once, but it's the most sources hold it's a little vadi called Vadi El Arish, which is near El Arish. Shockingly enough, right? So that's clearly outside of Eretz Yisrael. Yet there were Jews living there. It says that when they came up by Bais Rishon, there were Jews who came up from that area. So how do we reconcile that? So as I'll tell you, there are areas which were conquered by Jews but are not part of Eretz Yisrael. That's a very, very interesting premise, which is not presented again in the Bavli, but is presented here in Yerushalmi, which might be the logic to argue in the Tzitz Eliezer, to say that the land can be conquered by Jews and not considered to be Eretz Yisrael. And I'll bring you a ride for that. I'm Rabbi Shubin Levi, it says, Ksiv, it says, Vayivrach Yiftach fled mipnei Achav, Vayeshev Eretz Tov, he dwelt in the land of Tov, which is somewhere in the Aver Yarden. Zususita, it's the area called Susita. I think that actually one of the maps, if you take a look at map Gimel, Susita is right on the eastern bank of the Kinneret. See that? Kinneret. You don't know where the Kinneret is? Map Gimel.
Yeah, that would be Ein, what's that called now?
Ein Charod, I think. Yeah, it's Kibbutzim. Yeah. Susita. Oh, so in any event, I mapped out a map Bays, which is much larger. You can see it even clearer, actually. So he actually says Eretz Tov there. Okay, so it's the southern part of the Golan. Okay, so Eretz Tov. So that land was owned by Jews. You see that, right? It's part of Oli Mitzrayim, part of even Oli Bavel. And nonetheless, V'lamani Krosh Shema Tov. Why was it called Tov? She Petura Mina Ma'aser Shvi'is, because it's exempt from Ma'aser Shvi'is. So that's why it's called good. So the Mashbiach, this is the first time I saw the Kavanoki quote the Mashbiach. The Mashbiach asked the Kasha, how can you call land which was exempt from Trumas and Ma'aser Toiv? It's bad, it's ra. So he says, Gidon, it says that Yiftach went and joined the Chevra of Anoshim Reikim, people who were, low people. So these people, they were sinners. So they called it Tov because it's exempt from Trumas and Maasros. Okay? So that's why, so we see the lands which are conquered by Oli Mitzrayim and even Oli Bavel, which nonetheless forms Kedusha Eretz Yisrael. And the truth is, there's a very famous case of that, which we didn't get to yet, but we'll get to later on, which is Beit Shan. Beit Shan, the Gemara in Chulin tells us explicitly, was not part of Eretz Yisrael, vis-a-vis Maisis, Trumas, and Maisis, and Shvi'is. And look where Beit Shan is; it's dead center, right? You see that? Both on map Gimel and map Beis and map Gimel. Yeah, it's even on the western part of the western part of the Jordan River. So nonetheless, it's going to be Chutzpah. There's Beit Shan. Okay. So let's just go again. Let's just go a little bit further. Rabbi Ami boy, V'lami Mali Misanin. Wait a minute, but still they pay taxes from Ashkelon. They pay taxes. So you pay taxes to the Israeli government. You're an Israeli, right? So doesn't matter. No. So Rabbi Ami.
This land,
Ashkelon,
was conquered by Oli Bavel, conquered by Oli Mitzrayim.
Right, but it was explicitly excluded. Right, explicitly excluded. They made it Sinai when they conquered it. This land will not be considered part of Eretz Yisrael.
Going to go there.
Yes. Right.
The Shemitah was required.
No. Same thing. They're linked. Shemitah too. Okay, we'll get to all these issues later on. Wait, didn't they pay taxes from there? So Rabbi Ami, we should describe him. Rabbi Ami thought people who pay taxes are conquered. Haha. Little did he know. But once we're on the topic, Sholosh pristigios. It's a Greek word for decrees. Sholach, or ultimatums, actually is a better word. Sholach Yerushua Eretz Yisrael Shlonik Chos Yerushua sent Eretz Yisrael before they end the land of Israel. Mishurot Lifnos, anybody wants to leave, Yifneh should leave. Hashim, anybody wants to make peace, Yashlim can make peace. Lasos Milchama, anybody wants to make war, Yaseh. It's very interesting more because we know that by the Shiva Amit says Lo Sachaya Kol Neshama, supposed to eradicate them. But this is the Rambam brings down that you're supposed to first offer them peace. It's not unilateral genocide. If they want to make peace, you can make peace with them. Okay? On our terms, but you can make peace with them. All right? Girgashi. That's what we're saying here. Girgashi, Ponaval Africa. The Girgashi went to Africa. Family of Kosh Baruch, and they believed Hashem. And it says they get schar ksiv aboy v'lokachtis chem l'eretz karetz. I'll take you to a land like your own land, Zu Africa. You gave them a special portion of Africa. Kivonim ishlimu, they made peace. The ksiv ishliki ishlimu yosh ve'givon Yisrael, they made peace with the Jews. Shloshim ve'chama lachim osim milchama, the 31 kings made war, and v'naflu lahem, they fell as a result. How far are we from Amud Aleph, by the way? 10 more lines. Okay, so let's go to Amud Aleph and then we start. Now, they left Gardike also exempt from Eretz Umazami. Gardike is Gror. If you take a look at map Gimel, you see if you go south of Ashkelon, southwest between Ashkelon and Beersheba is Gror. Avram lived there for a little time. Yitzchak lived in Gur. Yeah, Yitzchak and Abimelech, they made their pact in Gur. Okay, so in Gur. So Gur was not including Tumas Chutzah. Why not? Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, same nation of Aliyah, because its dwelling places are lousy. It stinks there. And therefore people are not going to go there anyway, so they didn't make a clear on it. So Rabbi Chaim, B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, Bar Rabbi Yitzchak said, Nachal Mitzrayim. The whole area between Gur and Nachal Mitzrayim doesn't have Tumas Eretz Amim. That's all, and the gas is strip. So it says, Mar, wait a minute. And Oslo is a beautiful place to live. Not nowadays. In the old days, it's a beautiful place to live. So they should make it also because of Eretz Amim. So it's more pishpishon. Yeah, but since Gror is bad, when you go from Gror to Oslo, it's unhealthy. So go from a bad place to a good place is not healthy. So therefore, people wouldn't go to Oslo, not going to frequent Oslo either. So therefore, they weren't going to Tumas Eretz Amim on it. Okay, even though it's good, since it's close proximity to Gror, and people can't go back and forth, it's unhealthy, so therefore they weren't going to Tumas Eretz Amim. Rabbi Yosef said, Sha'ilis Ravacha asked Ravacha, what about this area? This Shara, and he was matir. Now, a very interesting case here. Take a look again at map Gimel. A map Beis, it also has it in larger detail, but map Gimel actually has a
right? That's the real source. The sugya.
Hey, you can look at map base. It's okay. Map base. Rabbi Zira Azal Chamsa de Pacho. He went to Chamsa. No, you need map Gimel. By the little Dalet and map Gimel. See by the little Dalet? There are two cities near each other. Chamsa de Pacho and Pacho. Okay? Rabbi Yirmiyah. Now these are technically both in Eretz Yisrael, but they're not. That's what Gemara is going to say. Rabbi Yirmiyah Zero Azal Chamsa de Pacho. Vava Chamar Garmei. He saw that he was sitting, Yosef Levarmin Diklaya de Bavel. He was sitting outside the row of palm trees, which was planted by the Oli Bavel as the boundary. So somewhere in that area was a boundary. He was sitting outside of it. Shalch Rabbi Chia Barabba. Rabbi Chia Barabba Shal Train Benoid Rabbi Yosef de Dama. He asked Rabbi Chia Barabba, did I do something wrong? I guess he was a Kohen. And Rabbi Chia Barabba asked for the two sons of Rabbi Yosef the Dama. They said, no, it's okay. The place where he was sitting, the Kohanim would still sit. In other words, you can go a little bit beyond the palm trees and still not be Tomei. So Rabbi Zira did not become Tomei when he went there. Okay? So the palm trees are not the absolute boundaries. Now, along these lines, very interesting, Laura. Kanaya, the Kohanim, Sholem Rabbi Yochanan, asked Rabbi Yochanan. Hahen chuta. Chuta literally means the thread, but here it means the derech, the highway. The chuta de nova mau. Now you take a look at map Gimel. You see along where the base is, there's a little dotted line. It starts in Nova and ends in Botzra. So you see that? So the Kohanim asked for Rabbi Yochanan, when we start traveling from Nova, how far can we go until the city Chutz starts? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chunia de Bras Chavron. So Rabbi Yochanan said to them, "Nay, Rabbi Chunia Bras Chavron, Nagin Kanaya Matia Deroy." The Kohanim would go all the way up to Deroy. And then beyond Deroy, Vahen Chutz de Butzraya, they would continue on the road of Butzraya Ad Pardesa up to a certain orchard where they know the boundary was. So that orchard was between Daroy and Botzra on that road. Okay? Are we still on Amr Alf? Amr Alf, I'm almost out of tape. Amr Alf, certain, as we learned, there are certain cities in Eretz Yisrael which belong to Goyim from days of Yoshua, and they are exempt. They're permitted for Shvi'is, Trumas and Maisos. Rabbi Yossi Boy Mi'ataloy Chushu Kohanim Al-Chalosan. If that's the case in those cities, the Kohanim shouldn't be concerned to eat the challah as tor, because the challah is not really a chiyuv. V'ana Chamir Rabbanan Choshvi, the Rabbanan are, do make sure you eat the challah in those cities as they are tor. Amr ben Pazi, Labigin Milsa Da'at Amars. It's not because they have no kedusha whatsoever. that you're like Yerushalmi. I'll begin to lo chaltos and malchusa biyada. It's because the kings took away the fields from us. It's a very interesting thing. In Trumas and Maasros, we have to own the fields. Otherwise, we're exempt from Trumas and Maasros. Vis-a-vis challah has to do with whatever grows in Eretz Yisrael, even if it doesn't grow in our fields. So these cities of the Kutim, they were exempt from Trumas and Maasros because the stuff wasn't growing in fields owned by Jews.